Hello everyone, I'm Cesar and I'm back with another video for PoE Exile. This time with another episode for the Broke Exile, the series where I play builds that can do tier 16 maps on the lowest budget possible. This time I have a Lightning Tendrils Elementalist, and as usual, you can find the POV for this build in the description of the video. There you can check the items, the gem, the passive tree, etc. etc. So, Lightning Tendrils is a channeling skill that has a very interesting mechanic. Basically, it releases a stronger pulse every 3 pulses, and the stronger pulses always critical strike. So how we build this is we skip getting any crit chance, and we focus on the stronger pulses. And we basically get a lot of crit multi. As you can see, my crit chance is super low, 1.3%, but crit multi 658. How do we get that? Well, a big amount comes from the amulet, Marilene's Fallacy. It's a pretty cheap amulet that has a lot of crit multi, but it has 40% less critical strike chance. But since we always crit with a stronger pulse, we can skip those. And to be fair, the stronger pulses happen quite often. Those bigger circles that you can see are the stronger pulses, so yeah. It's pretty often that we crit. So that's how we build this character. So we are also converting our lightning damage to gold with double call of the Brotherhood. So we can benefit from things like Heath Shiver for the extra damage, and also from our ascendancy with Shaper of Winter. And also so we can freeze and chill enemies, which is a pretty good defensive mechanic itself. Since Lightning Tendrils is a channeling skill, we also want to invest into defense, so it doesn't feel bad at the moment of playing, especially since we're playing also as a self-caster. And this character is actually my character from the Blast from the Past event for the Sentinel and Calandra leagues, and I had a lot of fun. This was actually a pretty successful character, so I think it can be a pretty good league starter as well. Maybe for the next league, 3.23. Let's see if anything changes for that league. But yeah, I was able to push all the way until level 91. I wanted to push for level 95 for the extra rewards or the extra chance for the level 95 rewards, but I didn't have time the last few days, so I didn't really play. And yeah, the event is actually about to end in a couple of hours, so yeah. But anyways, talking about the build, most of the items are basically life and resistances for the rare item. The globes specifically are important in this build because it is how we get our cold exposure. And getting cold exposure is important so we can benefit from our ascendancy in Mastermind of Discord for the extra minus 25 elemental resistances. So you need to farm some blue maps to get the Eater of Worlds currency and spam it so you can get the cold exposure. Then the belt, actually, this is a very good upgrade that I didn't have time to implement. This Aran's Anguish is a drop from Maven, I believe, this belt. And it basically changes your endurance charges to brutal charges. And brutal charges give you 3% chance to deal triple damage. And either double or triple damage is really good with his Shiver and crit and cold damage in general. So yeah, this belt is a pretty good upgrade, but you also need to find a way to generate the endurance charges. A couple of ways are maybe the minimum endurance charges with the Grand Spectrum jewels from Labyrinth, but that's pretty expensive. A much cheaper way is with the small armor cluster with enduring composure. So when you get hit, you get an endurance charge every second. That is a pretty decent way. That's how I would have done it. Then, talking about the passive tree and also the ascendancy, as I said, Shaper of Winter, Mastermind of Discord, Heart of Destruction is really good. we get 30% more elemental damage when we hit a unique enemy, but when we don't, we actually have 60% increase AoE, which is very useful for this build. It helps a lot with mapping. The other ascendancy point is in Bastion of Elements, so we can get the Primal Aegis shield that it will take 2100 elemental damage from us. It's actually pretty good. It's not as good as getting something like a spell suppression, because when you get hit and the shield goes back to 0, we have to wait a few seconds so it can replenish. But anyways, then passive 3, no clusters, no anything. We have a couple of jewels, but they are very basic crit multi, spell damage, and sometimes resistances or dexterity jewels. Cast speed is also useful. We can get more jewels over here as well. You can get clusters down here. Maybe this is where you can put your armor cluster with Enduring Composure, the belt. Maybe a large lightning cluster. Also, the passive 3 is where we get a lot of maximum elemental resistances. In total, I have 82 fire and cold, 81 lightning. We want to get max elemental resistances because, since lightning tendrils is a channeling skill, we need to get the defenses. Something that I don't have is fist damage taken as elemental, which would be pretty good. You can get it on the body armor and the Gravicus craft. It's a pretty good option to get. Then we're also running Determination for our auras with Wrath and Herald of Ice, and also Arctic Armor for the extra defense while stationary, basically while we're casting lightning tendrils. The other aura is Clarity, but is reserved on our life, so we can benefit from this mastery for the +1 to all max elemental resistance. Anyway, look for crit, lightning damage, cold damage. The Anoint, Stoneweaver is pretty cheap and is pretty good as well. Get some life on the tree. Get your Iron Will for a little bit of extra damage. And that's pretty much it for this character. My flasks are not finished. I can almost sustain mana completely. I would say that probably getting a few extra levels in your Clarity will be enough to sustain the mana. Basically with that and with the mastery that makes the skills cost life instead of 30% of mana cost. I think that's enough. We cannot really get minus mana cost on the rings or the amulet because that's for the uniques. And then the other flasks. I have cast speed with movement speed and armor as well. Probably you want to replace this flask and this for, I don't know, anything. Maybe one of the elemental resistances flask or a utility flask. But anyways, that's it for this build. I hope you enjoy the build if you decide to play it. I definitely have. So yeah, thank you very much for watching and take care. Bye bye.
Just in time. when I'm ready and not before.